My wife, 39-year-old female, and I, 36-year-old female, have a daughter, technically my stepdaughter. But I've raised her since she was 5. 19-year-old female, from a previous relationship of my wife's, her father is not in the picture, who has come back home after her first year at university. She's picked up a new and problematic issue since she was last home for an extended period of time surrounding laundry. Basically, she has established a boundary where nobody is to touch her clothes. Her reasoning is that she's concerned something will go missing or get damaged, thinks it's just gross for us to go through her stuff, and is an adult who deserves privacy. All fine, we have 3 young children in our home, 2 9-year-old females and a 2-year-old male, so plenty of washing to keep us entertained. The issue is that she has a habit of monopolizing washing facilities to the extent where we're effectively prevented from being able to get any other laundry done. For example, last weekend she put a wash in before work and hung it out on the line at around 11 a.m. She then left for work, 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. Her wash was dry within an hour, and obviously she wasn't going to be back all day. We had a few days worth of washing to get through, so my wife, her mom, took everything off the line and folded it. We got through 5 other loads that day. She was not happy when she got home and said that she'd been very clear that we weren't to touch her things. When we explained the situation above, she said it was first come, first served, not something we've ever said, and that since the next day was due to be nice also, we should have just waited to get through it the next day. That really pissed us off. We've offered her a weekly laundry day, where we'll avoid using the machines so she can have freedom to do as she pleases on that day, but she said once a week won't cut it. Fair enough, but there are 5 other people in the house who need clean clothes, bedding, and towels. Other than that, all we can really suggest is that she keeps on top of her washing. If she's at home, we'll ask her to clear her clothes from the machine, dryer, or washing line as needed. But like any 19-year-old, she has a social life and work commitments and is often busy. She's upset because she says we're not respecting her boundaries, whereas we've pointed out that while "don't move my clothes" is objectively reasonable, it's not fair for her to do so at the inconvenience of everyone else in our home. Essentially, the last conversation we had ended up with her in tears because we said as long as situations like Saturday keep occurring, we'll continue to move her stuff. Just FYI, we do fold her clothes carefully and leave them in a basket in a communal living area so they're kept together in good condition, and we're not going in and out of her room. We normally have a good relationship with her, so this is all a bit unusual. We've asked her if everything else is okay, and she says yes and seems otherwise normal in and of herself, and she's normally reasonable. So, are we being unreasonable? Edit. So the consensus is pretty much that we're right, and our daughter is being massively unreasonable, and that we're being pushovers for not being tougher on her from the beginning. We've shown her the comments, and unfortunately, she's still insisting that we're the unreasonable ones. We'd never considered the local laundromat and have banned her from using our washing machine for the next fortnight, given she's still unwilling to adjust. She is absolutely furious, and my wife has ordered a lock for the washroom door to enforce the 2-week rule. Hopefully, a couple of weeks of her hauling her stuff to and from the laundromat will help her see the light. Thanks very much, everyone. Edit 2, a slightly calmer update this morning. Our daughter came to talk to us and apologize for the situation. She said she had found the transition back home hard, I get that, and had maybe become a bit territorial over her stuff while at university. All okay. She then asked if she could please have a laundry day and be allowed to use the machine. Her place of work is closed on Mondays, so that's now her day, and we've said that she can use the machine on other days, but if by 7 a.m. Tuesday there's anything in the way or any issues on any other days, we'll be moving her stuff. A genuine apology goes a long way with us, and while the advice has been to hold firm, we don't really want an issue if the situation can be resolved calmly. We've also made it clear that if her things do have to be moved on any day, other than Monday, which is totally hers, and we get any grief about it, we'll go back to a 2-week ban, and there's no going back. Maybe a less satisfying update than the last one, but we're happy we can resolve the problem calmly. She did mention she'd read through some of these comments last night, so thank you to everyone that weighed in. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I hate the weaponization of psychiatric terms. Not everything you don't like hearing is a trigger, and not everything you don't like happening is a boundary. She doesn't like you touching her clothes? Fair enough. You don't like her leaving her stuff blocking the laundry? Also fair enough. But framing it as a violation of her boundary, she's made it as a borderline attack. You can't negotiate from there, and your reasonable needs make you wonder if you are the jerk. You are not the jerk. Comment 2, not the jerk. That's not a boundary. A boundary is what you build around yourself. Think of fence. You can build a boundary fence around your life home, but you can't on your neighbors. Sure, no one touches my clothes, but the moment your clothes are obstructing your neighbor, it gets removed. Same with, say, your kid's ball. No one is to take your kid's ball, but if it ends up on someone else's lawn, of course they can move it out of the way. Now for the update, thank you for all the comments and advice on my last post. It's been interesting to say the least of a few days since then. On Monday, our daughter had her laundry day, and everything seemed to be going smoothly. She was able to get all her clothes washed and hung out to dry without any issues. We thought maybe things were finally settling down and we could move past this whole laundry disaster. But then Tuesday rolled around and we woke up to find a pile of our daughter's clothes still in the washing machine. My wife and I looked at each other, knowing what we had to do. We carefully removed the clothes, folded them, and placed them in the basket as usual. When our daughter got home from work that evening, she immediately noticed her clothes had been moved, and the tension in the house was obvious. She confronted us, accusing us of not respecting her boundaries and going back on our agreement. We tried to calmly explain that we had given her Monday as her laundry day, but anything left in the machine after that was fair game. She wasn't having it, though. She started yelling, saying we were treating her like a child and that she couldn't believe we would betray her trust like this. The argument escalated, and before we knew it, our daughter was packing a bag and storming out of the house. She said she was going to stay with a friend and that she couldn't live under our roof if we couldn't respect her. My wife and I were stunned. We never thought things would get to this point over something as trivial as laundry. The next few days were tense. Our daughter refused to answer our calls or texts. We were worried sick about her, not knowing where she was staying or if she was okay. I couldn't help but feel like we had failed as parents. Maybe we should have been more understanding, more willing to compromise. But then on the third day, our daughter showed up at the house. She looked exhausted and her eyes were red from crying. She sat us down and apologized for the way she had reacted. She said she had been talking to her friend and realized that maybe she had been a bit unreasonable. She acknowledged that it wasn't fair for her to monopolize the washing machine and expect us to work around her schedule. We had a long talk and came to a new agreement. Our daughter would still have her laundry day on Mondays, but if she needed to do a load on another day, she would let us know in advance. And if she did leave clothes in the machine, she wouldn't get upset if we moved them. It was a compromise, but one that we could all live with. Looking back, I realized that this whole situation was about more than just laundry. It was about our daughter asserting her independence and trying to establish her place in the household as an adult. And it was about us learning to navigate this new dynamic and find a way to respect each other's needs and boundaries. In the end, I'm grateful for the experience. It taught us all a valuable lesson about communication and compromise, and it brought us closer together as a family. We know there will be more challenges ahead as our daughter continues to grow and change, but we feel better equipped to handle them now. So to anyone else out there struggling with a similar situation, my advice would be to keep an open mind and be willing to have those tough conversations. It's not always easy, but it's worth it in the end. Thank you again for all your support and understanding. Am I the idiot for sending a price sheet for a wedding cake to my family? Who didn't invite me to the wedding? Let's get straight to the point. I, 22-year-old female, am a full-time baker for a small business and college student. I moved back up to my home state in September of 2023, mostly to get away from my toxic family and for better opportunities. Also to add why this is even an issue in the first place. My brother Jay, 25-year-old male, and I are the black sheep of the family, mostly due to the fact we were born and mostly raised outside of marriage. The teasing and neglect only grew worse after our mother, 44-year-old female, married jerkfish, 54-year-old male and had our half-siblings, 20-year-old female, 17-year-old male, 16-year-old male, and 11-year-old male. Now here's the dilemma. My half-sister, who we will call JoJo, 20-year-old female, is getting married to Rit, 22-year-old male, in July, my mom and grandma asked that I make them a wedding cake, which I would have happily agreed to if I was invited to the wedding. The thing is, they wanted me to make a cake fit for 200 people, get a hotel near them. They hate that I'm not a Christian, so they think I'll bring evil into their house, work for 3 days, and get a flight there and back. I'd have to pay for all of it. They think it'd be a nice gift to my sister. I just laughed and sent them my price sheet. They flipped out. I was bombarded with texts from them about how selfish I am, how I am truly vile, how I am toxic for expecting my family to pay for my cake when they could just go to Walmart to get one, etc. JoJo even messaged me on Discord a week after I had sent the price sheet and asked why I would charge her when I made my best friend a free wedding cake. I simply told her to F off, as not only was I invited to her wedding, but I was the MOH, and in a way, it was a returning the favor for being a genuinely good friend and helping me out when I was going through a lot. Jay and his wife had said I'm not wrong for it, and they do the same thing, and my boyfriend is on my side. However, a few people in my life are saying I should have just said a simple no instead of sending the sheet, and that my response to my sister was harsh. So I need an outside perspective. Hopefully other bakers on here too. Am I the idiot? Update #1. I found out the exact reason for my brother's family and I not getting invited. 3 months after my sister and her soon-to-be husband got engaged, my grandmother requested my sister not invite the sinners. It was more along the lines of, if you don't invite your siblings, you'll get a hefty portion of my will. Don't really know what the proper term for that is, but I digress. So my sister is catering to the needs of my discriminatory grandmother over her own sisters. I also found out another reason, out of the many, why my brother and I were black sheep in the family. So you see, my mother is whiter than paper. My brother and I's biological father is Lakota Sioux Native American. We were told he just left us because that's how the savages act. When in reality, our dad died from a terminal respiratory illness that he had since he was a toddler. Some cis type of deal? Not too sure. The hatred from them only grew further when my brother married a black woman and had my 3 nieces together. Fourth on the way, I told JoJo how hurt I was by picking money over family, but I kinda expected it. She tried to offer me $50 to make the cake she wanted, and I just declined. I shared this post with my brother, and he is rolling while reading the comments. Also, to the people who DM'd me to tell me that they hope I go out of business. My boss says hi, by the way, and that I deserve getting abused as a child because I'm a snot now. F off. Stay awesome and brutal as ever Reddit. Thank you for all of the support. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. So some common questions I had received. Q. Where would I be making the cake? A. One of the family friends' homes. They have a huge kitchen with multiple ovens and space. I've not been on good standing ground with them since I was 16 years old. Q. Why haven't you been invited to the wedding? How'd you get the cake there? A. It's a plethora of reasons, from not following the same religious beliefs, to not wanting to go to school for law or not wanting to be a trad wife, to me not being my hurtful grandma's ass kisser, etc. The list of my flaws, according to my bio family, is endless. I'd have to rent a car to transport the cake. In short, the type of cake they wanted would be $2,300 at the minimum. Comment 2. If I were in your shoes, I wouldn't even make a cake for these people if they did pay me for it. If you aren't good enough to stay in their house and aren't good enough to be invited to the wedding, then you aren't close enough to be expected to give them a free cake. They can't have it both ways. Either you're family and are invited to the wedding, or you aren't treated as family and don't owe them freebies. Not the idiot now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading my last post and for all the support you've shown. It means a lot to me during this difficult time. 3 days after I declined to make the wedding cake, I received a call from my mom. She was furious, screaming at me about how I had ruined JoJo's wedding and that I was a selfish, ungrateful daughter. She went on and on about how I should have just done it for the family, regardless of not being invited or compensated. I tried to explain my perspective, but she wouldn't listen. The call ended with her telling me that I was no longer welcome in the family and that I should never contact them again. I was devastated. Despite the toxic relationship, a part of me still hoped that we could reconcile someday. Now it seemed like that door was permanently closed. I spent the next few days in a fog, barely able to focus on work or school. My boyfriend tried to comfort me, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being utterly alone. Things took a turn for the worse when I received a letter from my grandmother's lawyer. Apparently, she had passed away a week ago, and I had been completely left out of the will. The letter stated that due to my selfish and disrespectful behavior, I was deemed unworthy of any inheritance. I later found out that Jojo and my other siblings had each received a substantial sum of money. The news hit me hard. I had always known that my grandmother favored my half-siblings, but I never thought she would go this far. The realization that I had been so easily discarded by my own family was a bitter pill to swallow. As I struggled to come to terms with everything, I started to reflect on my childhood and the way I had been treated growing up. I remembered the constant comparisons to my half-siblings, the way my accomplishments were always downplayed, and how I was made to feel like an outsider in my own home. It was a painful trip down memory lane, but it helped me understand why I had always felt so disconnected from my family. In the end, I realized that I had to move on and focus on the people who truly cared about me. My boyfriend, my best friend, and my brother Jay had all been there for me through thick and thin. They were my real family, and I knew I could count on them no matter what. Although the past few days have been incredibly challenging, I'm determined to keep moving forward. I know that I made the right decision by standing up for myself and refusing to be taken advantage of. It may have cost me my relationship with my mom and siblings, but I refuse to compromise my self-respect for anyone, even family. Thank you all again for your support and kind words. It's been a tough journey, but I know I'll come out stronger on the other side. Am I the idiot for cutting off my mother after she criticized my wealth while I adopt her toddler? I, 34-year-old female, have a difficult relationship with my mother. She had me when she was 17 and was addicted to various substances while I was growing up. She would leave me with whoever would watch me for days on end, and I ended up mostly raising myself. I left home at 16 and stayed with various friends until I was able to get my own place. At 25, I met my now husband, and we got married 3 years later. His family is the complete opposite of mine. They are incredible, loving, and warm. I honestly consider his parents as my own and call them mom and dad. They happen to be quite wealthy, but that isn't something I care about. I only mention it because it matters to the story. Last year, my mother reached out to me after a decade of not speaking to her. She wanted to reconnect and introduce me to my 2-year-old sister. I was confused because I didn't even know she had been pregnant. It turns out my sister was a surprise late in life. I thought maybe my mother had changed and wanted to ensure the well-being of my sister. At first, it seemed like things had changed, and she was trying. This illusion lasted for the first few visits over 6 months. Then she broke down and told me she couldn't handle it anymore. She asked me to take my sister. My husband and I had a long talk about it. We had been struggling with fertility and had been considering adoption anyway. We decided that if we were going to do this, we would do it properly. We had his family's lawyer ensure that it was a legal and airtight adoption, which took several months. My in-laws adore my sister and consider her their granddaughter. They even set up a trust fund for her. We allowed my mother one supervised visit per month so she wouldn't be completely cut off from my sister. However, during these visits, things went poorly. My mother saw how my sister was dressed and the expensive toys she had. She began to criticize us for hiding the fact that we have money and said that if we had given her money, she wouldn't have given us my sister because she could have taken better care of her. I told her that while we have some money, it is mostly my husband's parents' money, not ours. Therefore, she had no right to know about it. I also said that even if we had money, I wouldn't have given it to her because I didn't trust her. She broke down and called me a selfish witch who had never considered how difficult things were for her. Now I feel guilty. My husband has offered to give her money to help me feel better, but I think that's a bad idea. She would likely use it poorly or blow through it and then expect more. Despite this, I still feel bad. Maybe I should have tried to help her more now that my luck is better, or maybe I should have been honest with her. Am I the jerk for keeping this from her? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot, it was kind of your husband to offer, but please do not give her money. If she is still using, she would probably spend a lot of it on her drug of choice, And I'm guessing the possibility of overdose would be even higher too. If not, she would probably just blow the money. You have nothing to feel guilty about. It isn't her business at all. You are not a selfish witch. You are the woman who took in and adopted her daughter because she couldn't care for her. May I suggest stopping the once-a-month visit until she can behave, because you don't need to go through that while doing her a favor. Also, she may try to steal your valuables to get money. Comment 2. Not the idiot. And now just stop it. You are dealing with an addict whose reaction isn't "my daughter is safe and being raised in a healthy environment," but is saying, "You could have given me money and helped me." She realized she misplayed her hand with you. She reached out to you to pawn off her responsibilities to her child, not to reconnect. She was going to do it if you had money or not. She got off the gravy train too early and regrets it. Focus on your family and happiness. She'll bleed you dry. I'm sorry and hope I'm wrong, but I've seen and lived this. Now, for the update. Hey there, thanks for the update. It's been a rough 3 days since I last shared my story with you all. The day after I posted, my mother showed up at our house unannounced, banging on the door and screaming for us to let her in. She was clearly high on something and causing a huge scene. I tried to calm her down and talk to her rationally, but she just kept yelling about how I had stolen her baby and ruined her life. Neighbors started coming out to see what the commotion was about. I was mortified. My husband had to physically restrain her while I called the police. They arrived and took her away for disturbing the peace and public intoxication. The next day, a social worker showed up at our door. Apparently, my mother had filed a complaint claiming we had kidnapped my sister and were unfit parents. The social worker had to do a home visit and interview us. It was nerve-wracking, but thankfully everything checked out, and the social worker could see my sister was in a loving home. Just when I thought things couldn't get any crazier, I got a call from my mother-in-law. She told me my mother had shown up at their country club, ranting to anyone who would listen about how her rich daughter had stolen her baby. She even cornered my father-in-law in the locker room, begging him for money. Security had to escort her out. My in-laws were horrified and embarrassed. I felt terrible that my family drama was affecting them. In the midst of all this chaos, I started reflecting on my childhood and my relationship with my mother. I remembered how when I was 7, she left me alone in a motel room for 2 days while she went on a bender. I survived on vending machine snacks. Another time when I was 12, she was so high she didn't notice I had a raging fever. I ended up in the hospital with pneumonia. There were so many instances of neglect and trauma. I realized I had buried a lot of anger and resentment towards her. Part of me felt obligated to help her now that I was in a better place. But a bigger part of me was still that scared little girl who couldn't count on her mom. My husband could sense I was struggling. He sat me down and reminded me that none of this was my fault. I didn't owe my mother anything. My only obligation was to protect my sister and give her the stable, loving childhood I never had. His words really resonated with me. I knew in my heart that giving my mother money or access to my sister would only enable her destructive behavior. I had to put my sister's needs first, even if that meant cutting my mother off completely. So that's where things stand now. We've decided to cease all contact with my mother and are looking into getting a restraining order. It breaks my heart, but I know it's for the best. I'm just trying to focus on being the best mom I can be to my sister. We're signing her up for toddler ballet classes and taking her to the park every day. Seeing her happy and thriving reinforces that we made the right choice in adopting her. This whole experience has been eye-opening. It's made me realize how much trauma and baggage I still carry from my childhood. I've decided to start seeing a therapist to work through those issues. I want to break the cycle of dysfunction and be the mom I never had. So that's the latest in my saga. Thanks for letting me vent and for all the support. I'll keep you posted on any new developments. Here's hoping things settle down from here on out. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.